Welcome back to the Den. It's Porter here. And in today's episode, we will be discussing 5 wide receiver targets in Dynasty Fantasy Football. These are 5 players that I will be targeting in my leagues, and I hope you do as well because you can get them at a great discount. Earlier this week, I released my top 60 wide receiver rankings. And then what I did was compare my list to the overall market on Keep Trade Cut just to see what the market evaluations are at on some of these players. And the 5 names that you're about to hear are the largest discrepancies that I found in my rankings compared to the market. So I'm excited to dive into these players. Up first, starting with a really good injury discount that you can get right now in Chris Godwin. Now, I know that he is an older prospect at 29 years old, but we cannot forget that this man was the number 2 wide receiver in points per game just last season before he got hurt. Okay, he was the number 2 in points per game. There is not anyone going as late as he is in startup drafts with that kind of upside. There's just not. There's no one that's going to come close to that level of potential. So he came in at my wide receiver 28, which still feels kind of low for a player of Chris Godwin's caliber. But on Keep Trade Cut, they have him ranked over, well, I guess they don't have him ranked. It's really the overall market, right? Everyone who goes to that site is inputting their opinion, which kind of develops those rankings. But on Keep Trade Cut, he's the wide receiver 46. So quite a discrepancy between the market wide receiver 46 and my wide receiver 28. So the vibes right now during training camp, I will admit, do not seem great. There's not a lot of updates with how Chris Godwin is doing with his injury. He had a fractured fibula and dislocated ankle. And while he's an older player, Tank Dell 2 seasons ago also had a fractured fibula, and we saw him come back from that. So this isn't the injury that Tank Dell sustained last season, but 2 seasons ago where he was able to come back and still be an effective player, albeit he's much younger than Chris Godwin. And Chris Godwin has had some serious injuries throughout his career. You know, he had the ACL tear a few years ago as well. However, the Buccaneers still gave him a good extension for 3 seasons, and this was after the injury. So Chris Godwin was a really popular target in the NFL free agency period, and he allegedly turned down more money from the Patriots to stay home in Tampa Bay. So the fact that not only did the Bucs not really hesitate to give him a good extension, but there were other NFL teams that felt like the health checked out is really what's making me not as concerned. Although now as we're getting closer to the season and having less updates, I do see why there's some hesitation on that, which is why he drops to 28 for me. But I think 46 is still a pretty big stretch. And Chris Godwin's metrics last season were still pretty good. He had a successful 2023 season. It wasn't the fantasy gold that we had last year with Liam Cohen. So I think there are going to be a lot of people attributing his success to that scheme. And it did do wonders for him. But in his kind of individual efficiency metrics as well, he performed much better just last season than he did in 2023. And what was really great with Godwin was that he wasn't leaving the field at all. Now, I know that they're adding Emeka Egbuka to the mix here, which certainly does create some additional target competition. But Chris Godwin's not turning 30 until this upcoming February, and we're seeing guys play later into their careers. He's still younger than Mike Evans, so the way I envision it, he's still their long-term number 1 target. I think with Godwin healthy, I still think Evans and Godwin are the 1 and the 2, with Egbuka being a really solid 3. And I think Godwin's career will outlast Mike Evans at this point. So you're going to have a near future where he is the number 1 target earner on this Buccaneers team. So for the fact that the market's really overreacting to the injury, and I think not thinking enough about the upside makes him a buy for me. I mean, right now on Keep Trade Cut, he's valued below Khalil Shakir. He's valued at pretty much the price of a mid-second round pick. He's barely above guys like Keon Coleman, DeAndre Swift, Zach Charbonnet, Isaiah Pacheco, James Conner, Isaiah Likely, and Michael Pittman. That's the tier of players that he's in. And like I said at the start, no one on that list really has the level of upside that Chris Godwin's going to have for your lineup. So go pay that mid-second and add Chris Godwin to your team and just brace for a slow start here as he eases back in for the season. He could be ready by week 1. It's just not entirely clear. But when he is on the field, you have a stud at the position. So go buy Chris Godwin. And then just to kind of pair these two together, another injury discount that you can get right now. Like these are the dips that you can buy in Dynasty and really just add elite talent to your team because the market's overreacting and valuing unproven players over elite NFL talents that just happen to be injured. And Brandon Ayuk has a better case even than Chris Godwin because he's younger. He's only 27 years old. He just turned 27 years old in March. And as we know, he has a very large contract. So there's a lot of contract insulation with Brandon Ayuk. He's tied to the Niners organization, certainly for the next 2 seasons. And then there is an out after that. But we also know that Brock Purdy just extended in San Francisco as well. And Ayuk's really had a great connection with Purdy, putting up elite efficiency with Purdy at the helm. So these two are tied together. You're in a good offense. Yes, there's a lot of pieces here with McCaffrey and Kittle, and there's a lot of high hopes for Ricky Pearsall, and we like Juwan Jennings. But Ayuk's still the youngest part of the core. I mean, I guess Pearsall is, but we don't really know where he fits in yet. But of that like Super Bowl team core, Ayuk is the youngest piece at 27 years old. So his target share over time really should go up. So I had him ranked as my wide receiver 26 compared to the keep trade cut wide receiver 44, which really just, I don't know, just another big discrepancy to me. And to be honest, your league may be even lower on Brandon Ayuk. There's a lot of narrative out there because of what happened last offseason with him holding out and honestly just looking really bad on the field after the holdout. And then, of course, well, he had one very good game against the Cardinals. It looked like he was back. And then the next game, he has the brutal knee injury that wasn't clean. It wasn't like he was just running a route and tore his ACL. It was with contact. So there was a lot going on with that specific injury, which is really just a bummer. But it does open up this window now to go buy him because people are thinking, he got his contract, he's not good at football, and now he's hurt. So that's why he's falling down these rankings. And I just don't buy into any of that. There were a lot of players last season who held out. Jamar Chase held out and had a slow start. CeeDee Lamb held out and he had a slow start. They just had the full season to kind of prove the whole vision. And we got to see them bounce back where we forgot that they even held out. So Ayuk just didn't really have that opportunity to prove that he still is the guy because in that 2023 season, before he got paid, I mean, he was pretty elite in every single metric. And like I was saying, like your league, you may get him even lower than where he's valued at wide receiver 44. I just had a startup about a week ago. I got him at pick 127 and he fell several rounds. It wasn't, I guess I was contributing to that fall, but it was more of a team build. I was so loaded at wide receiver and then I actually traded up to go get him because I just could not watch this man fall any further. After what he's shown us in the NFL. Truly one of my favorite route runners, has such a unique style, a do-it-all receiver that's going to block, which doesn't help for fantasy, but he's just the type of receiver that teams want. And while the vibes may seem kind of bad in San Francisco right now, we're always getting reports that they're unhappy with the contract and how he handled himself. I think more than anything, they're just disappointed that he couldn't be on the field and help them win games last year. And they're going to be very happy to have him back. So I just don't understand like why with both Godwin and Ayuk, the injury concerns are making them fall this far. I definitely understand the small dip. However, it's just getting kind of out of hand with these two. And really when Brandon Ayuk's healthy, he's consistently a top 15 fantasy wide receiver, which is why I'm not concerned at all. He's young too. So it's not like he's 32 and this knee just ended his career. He still has plenty of time to get back to health. And as we've seen with wide receivers, if you look at the data on just knee injuries comparing wide receivers to running backs, the ramp up speed for receivers is much quicker. Although I guess in this case, since it wasn't that clean tear, it may take Ayuk. It really could take him like half a season to be back to himself. But still, you're getting half of his 27-year-old season, and then really probably 4 or 5 more years of Brandon Ayuk. And if the Niners want out in a few seasons, we know Ayuk's been trying to play with his college teammate Jaden Daniels. So, you can't think too far in advance because we just know for now he's in San Francisco. But there's a chance he goes to an even better situation where he has less target competition later in his career or later in his prime. So I love buying Brandon Ayuk right now. I think the most recent trade on Keep Trade Cut with Brandon Ayuk is Brandon Ayuk in 2/3 for Jalen Warren in 2/4. So, I mean, if that's the type of deal that you can get, that's where Brandon Ayuk's valued in your league, you have to go do that right now. Don't wait for there to be positive recovery news. Just buy him at this lowest value and be happy that you got him on your team. And next on our list is the recently extended Courtland Sutton. An older player as well at 29, so he'll turn 30 in October, but he just got extended for 4 years and $92 million. He came in as my wide receiver 25 on my rankings, despite being the Keep Trade Cut wide receiver 39. And the big thing with Sutton is that he now has a quarterback. Bo Nix very much looks the part in this QB-friendly system with Sean Payton, so we're happy with how the offense is looking. And they didn't really add too much target competition for Courtland Sutton. I do like the Evan Ingram addition. I think that's a positive add to the offense. And then, but really the only other receiver they brought in was Pat Bryant with a 3rd-round pick, who apparently, according to Sean Payton, is like the next Michael Thomas. But I'm going to bet that it's still Courtland Sutton is the guy that you want in this offense outside of, whatever happens with those running backs. And yeah, so he's now tied to Denver until he is 34 years old. Well, all of the details are not out for what that contract's looking like. That is quite the commitment by the team for an older player. And Courtland Sutton's always been the type of name where there's sometimes been buzz about how good he could be, and he's just never really hit that ceiling. So I think because of that, there is a dip on his name. Like, he doesn't have that much name value. But what he did last season for you, you were pretty happy with. He was number 24 in points per game. So he was a wide receiver 2, a low end 1. But I think you're pretty happy slotting him in your lineup every week. He had number 2 in the NFL in air yards, number 8 in red zone targets, top 13 in receiving yards. He was number 3 in his contested catch rate, and he was number 2 in fantasy points versus man. So it's really the man defense that he thrives in beating and where he's getting the bulk of his points. So I'm hoping that in this year 2 with Bo Nix, they're going to attack those mismatches more. And in fact, having a guy like Ingram, or if Pat Bryant has some, actual threatening ability as a wide receiver, it could lead to more just man-on-man single coverage matchups for Courtland Sutton, which particularly in the red zone, you're going to be quite happy with. So Courtland Sutton's a player where he is ranked outside of like at the Keep Trade Cut wide receiver 39, right? He's below a flex wide receiver. He's in that wide receiver 4 range, but I'm feeling good starting him as my wide receiver 2 in pretty much every format, depending on what that build looks like. So the fact that he's a wide receiver 2 or definitely a high end wide receiver 3 that you can get for wide receiver 4 prices, I think you have to just make that decision. And now it looks even better for you because you have stability, you have a good head coach, you have a good quarterback, and now you have the contract insulation to back it up. And Courtland Sutton's a good player too. Like, he's going to have hopefully a long career. We're seeing guys with his play style where it's less about the athleticism and explosiveness and just more about the size. He's not in the same caliber as Mike Evans, but that's kind of just what I think of with the big body, like box out, just be close to double-digit touchdowns every single year. You're getting that with Courtland Sutton. I don't really see that changing in Denver anytime soon. So go acquire him. Again, he's in this tier where you can move future random seconds for him, and I'm doing that where I can. Go a bit younger here with the Colts wide receiver Josh Downs. I have become so high on Josh Downs this offseason. I am all in on the year 3 breakout that is coming for Josh Downs. He was ranked as my wide receiver 23, but on Keep Trade Cut, he is listed as the wide receiver 35, which was a bit shocking because I feel like every time I'm on Twitter, someone's talking about Josh Downs and just this breakout potential that he has on this team. And it really comes down to the fact that, yes, the quarterback situation doesn't look good. However, the quarterback situation is going to be win-win for Josh Downs. Either A, Anthony Richardson wins the starting job because he has improved as a passer. That is good for Josh Downs. Or B, Daniel Jones starts, which doesn't sound great, but Daniel Jones spams his slot players. He turned Wan'Dale Robinson into like a PPR machine in fantasy football last season. I can't imagine what he would do feeding that same volume to a player of Josh Downs' caliber. So I'm all for him being like, he reminds me of not comparing his play style, but all those years where you're like getting Tyler Lockett as your wide receiver 3 and you like don't feel great about it, and then he just overperforms and is like a top 15 to 20 guy every year, yet is always drafted as a wide receiver 3. I think that's what we're seeing, or that's what we're going to see from Josh Downs with his future, where just not the biggest name and not in this really good quarterback situation at the moment, but you're going to love the actual production that you're getting from Josh Downs. So even just last season in points per game, he was the wide receiver 28, which I know isn't very exciting, but still like the market is well below what he's already proven on a points per game basis. And there's only upside for him. I don't see a downside case for Josh Downs really, because he is just insanely efficient. He was number 6 in his target rate. So on 29.6% of his routes run, he was drawing a target, 6th in the NFL. He won 55% of his routes, so which was number 5 in the NFL. He was number 15 in win rate against man. And he's doing all of this while barely playing over 70% of the snaps. So this is the piece that has to change for him to truly reach his ceiling. But I just hope by now that Shane Steichen is realizing that Josh Downs has to be on the field more. They are a better team when he's on the field. He's better than Michael Pittman. He's better than Alec Pierce. We need him on the field more often. And I know that he's a slot. He really is mostly a slot only player. They have to get creative in using more 3 wide receiver personnel. And I think we're going to get that. I mean, last season, he only had 3 games, 3, where he played 70% or more of the snaps. And in those games in PPR leagues, he had 22.2 points, 19.4 points, and then another 19.4 point performance. So he's averaging over 20 points a game when he is on the field for 70% of snaps. So we have to have him hit that level. And if he does in year 3, if this offense can really start centering on Josh Downs or just playing to the strengths of your quarterback, if Daniel Jones is the starter, I mean, he has like wide receiver 1 upside. And I don't feel crazy saying that. Just looking at what he does when he's on the field, he truly is one of the best slot receivers in the NFL. So he just needs to get the ball more. He's still young. He's 23. So he's turning 24 in August. So next month he'll be 24 years old. But for a player who's this young, this productive, and the only thing really holding him back is how often he's on the field, which we see increase as guys are in the NFL longer when they have these breakouts. Like, he's not a Jamar Chase or Justin Jefferson where they just command everything right away. But Josh Downs really could be in for this traditional fantasy year 3 breakout. So go get him on your teams. I think he's going to be a massive riser this season, and you're not going to be able to get him at this low of a price for the rest of his career. And before I get to the last name, I want to celebrate with this wonderful community that we've built, and we're doing a giveaway. So we're giving away a Dynasty Den hoodie pictured there. I got one ordered for myself, so I can't wait for it to arrive so I can start repping it on the channel. But you can get one as well. All you need to do is make sure you are subscribed to the channel. Definitely like this video for some good karma on your side, and good luck in the drawing. And then you need to go to our community posts and find the post that's right there on the screen celebrating our 50 subscriber count. And all you need to do is read those directions. You're going to comment one of your favorite sleepers. And the deadline is this Friday, August 1st at 8 p.m. And then I'll pick a winner and we will get you that hoodie. And you'll be one of the very first to represent the den and give you something nice and comfortable for football season. So thank you for all your support with this channel. This has been the most fun 2 months of my life. And I just can't wait to continue growing, continue talking ball with you and helping you win your fantasy leagues. The final name that we will talk about today is our thumbnail poster boy, Chris Olave, who was one of these prodigal dynasty assets that everybody wanted to own just one season ago, being drafted as a top 12 wide receiver in redraft, and then has a brutal year of bad quarterback play and injuries, and now has fallen all the way down to the wide receiver 32 on keep trade cut. I am holding the line, and he is my wide receiver 19. So I am not out at all on Chris Olave. He is a young player. We know he's incredibly talented. He just turned 25 years old, and he has some upgrades headed his way. So if you look at his points per game data last year, you're not going to like it. And a big reason for that is because in one game, he took a hit early on his first catch, got a concussion, fumbled the ball, got you negative points in that game, obviously did not return to the game with the concussion. So he had a negative point game last year that just kills his averages with how much time he missed. But if you actually go look at his game log, it's not as bad as you remember. He was still putting up respectable fantasy numbers with not very good quarterback play. I mean, just with that, what Chris Olave has done in his career really makes Derek Carr seem a lot better than he is. And Derek Carr is a competent NFL quarterback. I am not going to knock him at all on that. But the drastic difference between Derek Carr and the combination of Rattler and Haener last year was not great. But they also were missing really everything on that team. So it's kind of just a fluke year for the Saints. I'm not expecting them to be great this year, but I do like Kellen Moore. Kellen Moore loves to make the passing game go. We've seen him create very easy looks everywhere he's been in his career as an offensive coordinator. And Chris Olave is still really just going to be the engine of this offense. I mean, Kamara will certainly get his, and Shaheed's a fun, deep ball player. But this offense really is going to run through Chris Olave. So I don't care really who's at quarterback, because if it is Spencer Rattler, at least it's hopefully a better Spencer Rattler than last year with an actual offensive line. And if it's Tyler Shuck, that means that that's an upgrade over what Spencer Rattler showed you. And just to compare Chris Olave to his college teammate Garrett Wilson, Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave are pretty similar players to me, just in the sense of they're on these bad teams. They don't have like stable organizations or quarterbacks around them, and they can only rely on volume. And we value, though the market values Garrett Wilson as a top 10 wide receiver, and yet we've allowed Chris Olave to fall all the way to wide receiver 32, which just really makes no sense to me. I think he was primed for a year 3 breakout last year and just didn't get to it because of the injuries. And I mean, 2 seasons ago, he was wide receiver 16. So you're having what you're actually getting in production versus where he's ranked on the market. And he's pretty good in almost every metric. He hasn't shown like elite ability, but he's solid, like pretty much in the top 20 on his route wins, his yards per route run. He's top 10 in air yards. So he's getting the type of passes that are successful for fantasy. So now we just need to hope that this scheme can really elevate it. And I think that Dennis Allen did not do anything to make Chris Olave successful, and Kellen Moore will do that. Even if the quarterback play stays the same, it's just going to be easier looks. And I think they're going to feed Chris Olave early and often, and they're going to need him if they don't want the number 1 pick in next year's NFL draft. And I don't understand where, like, Chris Olave has fallen. He's below Matthew Golden, below Terry McLaurin, below DJ Moore. He's valued below late 27 first, late 26 first, below Jalen Waddle, Zay Flowers, DK Metcalf, Jordan Addison, and George Pickens, who just, none of those guys have really shown the upside that Chris Olave can give you. And if they do get the number 1 pick and they get a good quarterback next year, like, Chris Olave is going to absolutely jump right back up into the top 20 dynasty wide receivers. So go get him now. He's another player where I think this is the lowest he should be in his career. So go acquire him for cheap. What are your thoughts? Do you agree with these takes? Disagree? I am always open for debate. That's the most fun part about talking about fantasy, is we're just weather forecasters, right? We don't know what's going to happen yet. I wish I was from the future and could say exactly who was the biggest riser and biggest faller, but unfortunately I'm not. So these are my opinions. Would love to hear yours. Drop them in the comments, and I will see you in the next one.